The People's Business is made possible by our partners, Solar Dynamics, the most efficient energy systems. The People's Business is made possible by our partners, Solar Dynamics, the most efficient energy systems.
A pleasant good night to one and all, and welcome to the People's Business. And this program will help to paint the picture for what the future of Barbados will look like over the next 7 to 8 years. We're talking about renewable energy solutions, the HDF Caribbean project. And to tell you a bit more about this initiative, we have some of those very closely connected to it. So I want to welcome tonight to the People's Business Thibault Ménage. He is the Vice President of HDF Caribbean. Aidan Rogers is here with us, a very familiar face on the renewable energy landscape here on the island. He's a strategic advisor at HDF Caribbean, and Jacqueline Beckles, she's a project developer with the company. So welcome to you as we get into tonight's conversation. We'll be on for an hour tonight, so we want you callers to get to the phone lines early on as we introduce this project to you. Those numbers to call: 228-5562, 228-5563. We will be back after this break. Welcome back to the People's Business as we discuss renewable energy solutions, the HDF Caribbean project. Now, this project is huge. It's the largest hybrid power plant in the Caribbean, and that's what will be developed right here in Barbados. And I don't want to share too much of the details. I'll give my guests the opportunity to do just that. Just to say, though, that this project will help to power about 16,000 homes. That's massive. So Thibault, first I want to come to you. Thank you for staying up. You're there in France, and thank you for spending some time with us in the early hours of the morning there. It's just after 8 o'clock here. But talk to us about this major project, the HDF Caribbean. Talk to us about the company, who you are, and this project that you are introducing here in Barbados.
Hi, Shane. Can you hear me first?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, Thibault.
Great, great. So the HDF project has a little name. It's called Renewable Barbados. We use three letters for that. It's RSB. So it's the RSB project we're talking about tonight. This project has been developed by a company called HDF Energy, which is actually a French company that has expanded across the globe for the past 10 years now. So we are a company specialized in what we call hydrogen power projects. So this is a company that regroups a lot of professionals from the renewable energy sector and from the process sector in order to combine renewable energy technologies such as solar and wind, for example, with hydrogen, green hydrogen more particularly, technologies. And we have a solution actually that we call the Renewable solution that we've been working on developing in Barbados, and that's hence why the Renewable Barbados project. So this project is actually a massive one. We're talking here about something that would actually combine efficiently a great amount of solar power with a huge storage. And the storage is actually using those hydrogen technologies to store electricity produced by the solar during the day and send it back to the grid during the night as well. So it's a combination of technologies that all together create a very continuous power output for the grid of Barbados. HDF Caribbean is headquartered in Barbados actually since last October, and the team that is there with me. So that's the Barbados team. There's also other contributors throughout the Caribbean are actually working on developing this project, but also other projects across the Caribbean that we're working on at the moment. So it's really a Caribbean subsidiary that we created in Barbados.
What kind of investment are we talking about here, Thibault, as you are investing in this not only massive plant, you have your headquarters here as well. Talk about that level of investment in terms of dollars and cents.
So for this very specific project, the RSB project, we're talking about an investment, a total investment of 135 million US. So that would be 270 million Barbados dollars. That's the project cost.
Wow. I want to bring you in here, Jacqueline, to talk a bit more about the inner workings of the project. We here in Barbados are very familiar with solar, something that we've built our country on from the early inception with solar water heaters, and now we see so many of these solar plants popping up around the country. This one is really on another level, and then you're pairing it with hydrogen as well. Talk about that pairing and how that works to get that power output to what you're looking to do in terms of this project with 16,000 homes possibly connected to it.
Okay, so what makes this project very different from all the other projects that you see being developed in Barbados is that we are, as you say, pairing solar power or green electricity with hydrogen storage. And so basically what we do is we take the solar power that is generated and we some of that goes to the grid and some of that is used to create hydrogen through electrolysis of water. And that whole structure that we have created, the electricity plus the storage, gives us the ability to stabilize the grid based on the fact that the hydrogen itself can be used to place firm power to the grid without having to worry about the intermittency that is created through the lack of sunlight through clouds or inclement weather, etc., etc.
Right.
So that is so basically once you've created the hydrogen, you store it, and then you can dispatch power to the grid at your leisure in order to meet the load that you require. Yeah, and so what does this basically allow the power distributor, BLPC, to get firm, very reliable power to the grid all the time, day and night. And so those 16,000 homes don't have to worry about fluctuations or anything like that in the supply. And BLPC doesn't have to worry about intermittency issues. That's basically the inner workings of it.
Yeah, we still have to talk about the location, where will it be. Of course, we will want to hear about what it will mean for Barbados, and we'll bring in Aidan to talk a bit about that. But we'll take a quick pause. Remember, viewers, you can call us and bring your questions to the panel here. Those numbers to call, 228-5562, 228-5563, as we're talking about this mammoth renewable energy solution coming from HDF Caribbean. We'll be back after this break. Tonight we're speaking about this massive project, the HDF Caribbean project. Renewable. We want you to get familiar with that name. Again, viewers, those numbers to call: 228-5562, 228-5563. If you have a question for Thibault, Jacqueline, or Aidan, who are all with HDF Caribbean. Aidan, we want to come to you now. This is also a partnership with Rubis, Renewable, between HDF and Rubis. Talk a bit about this partnership. How does Rubis fit into the equation?
Well, basically the partnership, Shane, and good night, Barbados, good night to you. This is a partnership that would have been founded sometime during the course of last year. And I think I would have been on the station sometime in October announcing the formulation of the strategic partnership between Rubis's headquarters in France and HDF, which is also based in France. And really that partnership represents an opportunity where companies like Rubis are really looking towards the clean technology as an option for really diversifying their old brand and their business model. So you can see that there's a movement towards really greening, as Rubis is a fuel distributor and supplier. And what this partnership really has even further been crystallized earlier this year, and there would have been some recent announcements in late January, early February in the local press, where Rubis's headquarters here, Rubis Caribbean Holdings, actually bought 51% in this RSP company. And what that really signals is that this project is a serious project. It's a project that is really looking to have a dynamic and innovative impact in terms of the island's energy mix as we move towards the 2030 goal of 100%. So I think this partnership really sends a strong signal to the market here that this project and this technology, and I think Jacqueline would have really signaled that, is really a project that brings something different to the energy landscape that we would have seen being developed over the past 10 years, without the exception of the battery storage system that the Barbados Light and Power Company would have invested in 2016. This project really represents another major large-scale foray into the energy storage market, along with renewable energy generation. And that's really what's the key differentiation here. And I think Rubis would have seen this opportunity here with this project, and hence their partnership and investment in it to date.
Yeah, when you were talking about 135 million US dollars being invested, that is what the government has been working on to get more investors getting into this renewable energy market. So this is a great, not a start, but this is a great continuation of the work the Barbados Labour Party government has been doing. Talk to us about the specifics now in terms of the location, how many panels that will be on the ground, and then there is the whole green component of the project as well.
Well, the project is really located in St. Philip at the Harrow Plantation, to be specific, which is really on the opposite side of the road from Bushy Park, which is a familiar landmark with Barbadians. And we're really looking at a project that's going to occupy 183 acres of land. And the project really would comprise of a 50 megawatt peak solar PV farm, which would be the largest on island to date, because the Barbados Light and Power facility is 10 megawatts. So we're really looking at a PV array that's probably 5 times the size of the largest installation to date on island. Wow. And it would comprise of, very big, and it will comprise of 128 megawatt hours of storage. And just to put that in context, the storage investment that the Barbados Light and Power Company would have made at the Trent's farm, this is the energy storage device using Tesla batteries, is 20 megawatt hours. So we're talking about close to almost 6.5 times the volume of storage when you combine the hydrogen, and there would be some lithium ion battery storage blended in this project as well. One of the dynamic features of this project as well, which I think Jacqueline can weigh in a bit later on because she's really focusing on these aspects, also has to be the dual usage of the project. And this is something she can speak to, because one of the innovations, 183 acres of land is quite a bit of land. And we know that Barbados is a relatively small island. So one of the innovative factors we're looking at is where we're trying to structure this project more as an agro-energy project. where we have some agricultural component involved in it, which we can speak a bit more later on in terms of details.
Well, Jacqueline, let's get into that part because we have some beautiful snapshots in this PowerPoint that we have that we've been showing. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the landscape, where you have a lot of the sheep grazing, that natural lawnmower to keep the surroundings, just do that general landscaping. And it's one whole big green energy mix. Speak about that circle of life that you have going on when you get everything going up at this big place in St. Philip.
Yeah, so you put it really well there. It is a circular economy arrangement because not only are we producing electricity for the human community, but we're also helping our agricultural community to develop the black belly sheep agribusiness as well, and then they also help us maintain our facility. So it is by definition a circular economy. So I would think of it like a symbiotic relationship. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
So what it basically does, so just in short, the sheep farm will be operated in tandem with the solar farm, and they will be doing what we call solar grazing in order to maintain the level of the land and the level of the grass. And the grass, when maintained this way, actually fares better, from what I understand. I'm not an agriculturalist, but it tends to fare better, grows better, and then becomes more fertile for future grazing. Also, the sheep farm itself, it's about 1,850 head of sheep, which is, I would believe, the largest sheep farm. It would be the largest sheep farm in Trinidad. I'm sorry, in Barbados. I am from Trinidad, as you may have been able to tell.
I know you'd like to have one of these there.
Yeah, we would. What it would allow you to do is basically bring a lot of that foreign exchange back into Barbados, right? Because a lot of your, if not all of your lamb is imported from countries like New Zealand, which is not very, so it costs a lot of money to bring that product and the skins from that product into the country.
Yeah.
So you can do that here. You can generate the meat.
Well, that black belly sheep lamb is pretty high on the list in terms of quality and flavor.
It's very good.
And price as well.
Yes, exactly. So go ahead. So I'll be brief. So you can generate not only the meat, but you can also generate the skins for the tanning industry and export that. Your black belly skins are actually quite valuable in countries like Italy. So that could probably be a very viable export market. And then there's the manure market, which, of course, sheep make a lot of manure. So there are a lot of offshoot industries that can come from the agri-sheep farm. And then we are just lucky. We get nicely maintained land. And lastly, I would say that there is a dedicated grazing area, what we call a fodder pasture, that has been allocated on the site for the maintenance of the sheep, so that to ensure that they are well taken care of during the dry season.
Well, it really sounds like a win-win for everyone involved, and for HDF, of course. Barbados thanks the company for its faith and investment in Barbados. Thibault, talk to us about, yes, this project is happening. When will it be up and running, one? And I'm figuring as Vice President, you would have a vision for what you want to do here in Barbados and across the region. If you can give us a little snapshot about that vision. But first, the project timelines, and then you can get into a bit about that vision for Barbados and developing other similar projects here on the island.
Thanks for that question. So in terms of timeline, as you know, projects always have goals in terms of timeline, and then there's the reality. But we have realistic timeline, which takes into account all the regulatory process that we need to go through in Barbados that we have applied for. So we're looking at what we call the financial close, is when you get all the money from both the lending entity, so the banks, and the investors, and you have all the contracts ready to sign, which is around like 50 to 60 contracts altogether, in order to start the construction of the project. So starting of the construction, we're talking mid 2023. So that's a year, a little bit than a year from now. A lot of work has been done. A lot of work is still to be done, but this is definitely, we're putting more and more efforts on it. And we also have teamed up with strong investors actually that are present on island and bringing a good support, which is Rubis Caribbean. Rubis Caribbean, headquartered in Barbados as well, overseeing at the entire region that we have a partnership with. And I'm highlighting that again because we, as HDF Caribbean, have a vision for not only this project, but other projects that we're already working on across the English-speaking Caribbean. And it's actually the same. These are actually the same market that Rubis Caribbean here is present in, right? So regionally speaking, we are duplicating this type of project across the region. There's a few that are early stage at the moment. One very important thing is to say that this project is actually not, it's the first of a kind in the English speaking Caribbean, but we are already successfully developed the same project structure in French Guiana, which is not the English speaking Caribbean, but not too far either. And the project is right now in construction. So this is serious and this is real, and this is exactly what we intend to do in Barbados with the Renewable Barbados project, the RSB project. And for Barbados, I mean, this is the first stone of the firm power renewable era in Barbados. As that Jacqueline mentioned before, Barbados has this goal of decarbonizing its grid, but it can only do so with some reliable and continuous output projects. So in complementary to the other more intermittent project. So our goal is actually to develop other projects like this, but we will always listen to how the market is evolving in order to best shape a solution that fits the local need. As you know, the grid changes, the more projects comes into the grid changes, and we will always shape our project in terms of sizing in order to best answer the need. So HDF Caribbean is on the ground, and we're actually looking at other type of project as well, power, but potentially with hydrogen mobility as well, shore power potentially for the cruise ship, because we know that the cruise ship in the future will be powered by green hydrogen more than heavy fuel oil. These are longer term goals, but these are things that we're looking at the moment already.
Yeah, it's great to hear what we can expect to see over the next 7 years, because 7 to 8 years, 2030 is really not that far away. And we do have some questions coming in from Facebook, and we will have some callers on the line as well. We'll be back after this short break to talk a bit more about these renewable energy solutions coming from HDF Caribbean. You want to take that one, Jacqueline?
Sure. No, the answer, short answer, no, doesn't. So the actual system has very few parts, right? And the parts that are the inputs and the outputs are totally green. The inputs on are water and electricity generated from the solar farm, which of course produces nothing that is environmentally unfriendly. The output is, and that of course generates hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen is vented to the air, which is, no big deal. Then the the rest of the water that is not used, sorry, before I get there, when we actually create the hydrogen, the output process of that, the reverse process, is actually generating water and electricity using oxygen from the air. So the water output may be very high mineral and it can be used for agriculture, which is the intention. And so there is absolutely nothing from the plant that can harm the atmosphere or the land or the community in any way.
And that's why so many countries want to move in this direction where they can. We in the Caribbean are fortunate. We are blessed with loads of sunlight, so we can take that and convert it into energy, whereas in colder countries it may be a bit more difficult, and that's why they're powered by nuclear plants, which would have those concerns about radiation and such like. Aidan, what do you think about how this fits in with what we're generally doing here? We've been pushing renewable energy. I find that things have been silent over the past year or so as far as talking about renewable energy. Of course, a lot of the focus has been on the pandemic and COVID-19 and how do we fix that. But now as we roll out of that and get back to some sense of normalcy, it seems like it's time that we have these conversations yet again. How does this fit in?
Well, it fits in perfectly. And Shane, contrary to your perception, quite a bit has been happening, particularly on the investment end. As you see, this project, 270 million Barbados dollars. This has been really in development for about the last 3.5 years in Barbados. So although you're not hearing things publicly, a lot of work has been done thus far to get the project to this stage. One of the key things that I want to highlight about this, because as I said, there's a lot of investment activity taking place generally around the country, and a lot of it is happening predominantly in the private sector. I could hazard a guess is probably maybe just shy of close to maybe $750 million in potential investment that is queued up to come into this sector. But one of the key highlights of this project that I want to emphasize, and as strategic advisor to HDF, this is one of the things when I was approached to assist them in the development of this project, is the whole question of local participation and local ownership. When the Barbados National Energy Policy was finalized and approved in 2019, one of the core values of this policy was to promote business opportunities for local investment that sought to minimize the outflow of foreign exchange. And this principle was actually then further enshrined in a visionary goal that sought to ensure that there were opportunities for Barbados, the most vulnerable ones in the society, to really participate and benefit from the 100% transition. Much has been made as to how this local participation would be manifested, whether through a policy or through translation from policy into a legal context. And what I can report is that the government of Barbados, I think the cabinet in early last year, would have indicated that there needs to be a 30% local ownership requirement for all investments in generation and storage. One of the things that HDF has sought to do with this project is to try and add deeper value to this whole question of local ownership. And I can report to Barbados tonight, it would have been in the press recently, that HDF with the RSP project is well advanced in discussions with the Barbados Sustainable Energy Cooperative Society Limited, with a view to trying to offer a 30% share of this $270 million project to that entity. And I just want to emphasize the point, why co-op energy, or why the cooperative movement? And it really has to do with how one seeks to define in a legal context and a real context, what is local participation? Um, RSB is an incorporated company. Come the amendments that were made to the Companies Act in 2019, there's no distinction between IBCs or local entity. However, with RSB, Renewable Barbados Inc., this is the holding company for the project. This is a locally registered company, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the owners of the company are local. So in trying to satisfy this local ownership requirement, we examine what is the best means that we can vest open ownership in this project, at least a 30% share, that could have meaningful value and deeper benefit to as many Barbadians as possible. And that's why we opted to look for a partner that was a cooperative. And it's all simply based on the fact that Section 4 of the Cooperative Societies Act, this is Cap 378, really speaks to some core cooperative values that really offer certain protections in terms of members. The whole principle of one member having one vote. So it means that it's not a question if in a company you purchase a lot of shares, you have controlling interest. It has prescribed rules in terms of the dividends that would be paid to the members. And we felt that this particular legal entity would be best to represent where we would seek to vest that local participation requirement. And there's no secret, Shane, that the cooperative movement in Barbados is very strong, close to 200,000 members, close to maybe over $2 billion in assets. And we felt that to address the spirit of the Barbados National Energy Policy in terms of that ability to minimize foreign exchange outflow, we felt that the cooperative movement was the best likely candidate for us to partner with. So I see this as one of the strategic highlights. And I think a project of this size sends a clear signal to the energy sector and potential investors that we need to add greater value to how we really vest that local participation requirement. That is the 30% that the Cabinet of Barbados has decided that they would try and ensure for Barbados, because that visionary goal in the energy policy really speaks to economic enfranchisement. And we have to see and perceive this energy sector as one of the key opportunities for the economic enfranchisement of Barbadians.
How individuals can do that, invest in this project and generally in the renewable energy sector? Do you have to join that cooperative? But we'll get back to that after we hear from this caller on the line. Good night, welcome to the People's Business. What is your question, caller?
Hello.
Hi, good night.
Welcome to Yes. So can I ask my question now?
Yes, go ahead. Ask your question. What's your question?
Yes, my question is that I'm living right here in Husbandside, and I want to know when this thing comes, if I can sign on to it. Since it's in St. Philip, I want to know if somebody in Husbandside can sign on to it and get energy from it.
Interesting question there. Jacqueline, I see you nodding your head. Can someone living in Husbandside get power from this grid in St. Philip? Can it happen?
Well, our off-taker is the Barbados Light and Power, so that question might better go to them. Mm-hmm. But as you said in the very early start of this program, it is 16,000 homes in the vicinity, some of which may not be in St. Philip, could be in surrounding parishes, and so she may very well fall within that service area.
Aidan, your thoughts?
Shane, just to follow up to that, it's basically the grid is like a melting pot. So what you really want to do is to add wholesome ingredients to the melting pot. So as much clean green energy that we can add to the melting pot really improves the content of that pot. So whereas some of the electrons produced and fed into the grid in St. Philip may not physically arrive in Husbands Heights, what we can say is that the overall substance of the energy supply would be improved. And this is really the general context of the energy transition. is a transition almost like a blood transfusion. I'm trying to use some medical analogies here, where we're trying to get out blood that's contaminated by fossil fuel with green renewable energy from various sources and a combination of technologies. So I think that's the best answer that I can give to that very pointed question.
Yeah, I think we get the message. It's all about getting away from fossil fuels, and our target is 2030. What I want to know is, as an individual, how can I take my hard-earned money and invest in this renewable energy sector to make some kind of profits on my investment? How as an individual can I do that? Be a part of this movement?
Well, Shane, I'll speak specifically to this project at first. And as I said, a 30% share of this project is being offered to the Barbados Sustainable Energy Cooperative Society Limited. The Co-op Energy, as it's called for short, they have a website, coopenergy.org, that persons can visit. They can get information on the site, how to become a member. But beyond that, Co-op Energy is a member of the Cooperative Society movement here in Barbados, and they have been in active discussions with other member cooperatives here who also will be seeking to invest in other green energy projects, but also to invest in co-op energy and actually encouraging their members. So you have the option to either invest directly in your regular cooperative or credit union, or you can go directly and invest in co-op energy that would actually have a vested interest in this particular project. So there's several opportunities. And as I said before, the beauty of investing in a cooperative society is that it's a voluntary basis. Any member can turn up. I think investment opportunities will start from maybe as low as $200, and the sky's the limit in terms of how much you want to invest. But what the key thing that I said, and that's why I mentioned the cooperative principles, regardless of how much you invest in a cooperative, you would have the same voting rights, whether you invest $5,000, $500, or $50,000. It is really one member, one vote. And that is really the extent to which this can serve as a vehicle for economic and democratization and enfranchisement. So anyone can actually look at the opportunity. And I think Co-op Energy in the upcoming months would have some prospectuses put together. As Mr. Ménage said earlier, we're looking for a financial close by mid-2023. So we have about a 12-month period where you would get more information as to what are the investment opportunities that would arise from the vesting of that 30% local participation interest in this project with Co-op Energy. I'm sure they will report to the public in terms of what prospectuses they will have and what investment opportunities are presented.
One big question before you go on that I think will come out of these discussions as we move forward with this project. So we're moving to this green level of energy. Will this mean reduced energy prices as we're moving away from fossil fuels? We are concerned about what's going on in Ukraine, and we see how that's affecting energy prices globally. Will this mean, as we go the green route, that we will pay less for electricity when the month comes?
Well, Shane, just to put this in context, the energy transition to 2030, and this is generally besides this project, has been estimated to cost anywhere between $3 billion to $3.5 billion Barbados dollars. There's a lot of upgrades that need to be undertaken, both in terms of our grid infrastructure, and this project literally just represents 6% of our current total energy demand on an annual basis. So $270 million project representing 6%, you get a tune as to the level of investment. What I can say realistically to Barbadians is that the energy transition is moving us more towards energy stability. The key thing to note with this project is that once that investment is made over the proposed 25-year life of this project, the cost of the energy from year 1 to year 25 will not change or fluctuate. That is currently not the case that we have right now in terms of our reliance on fossil fuel, because we just saw there's the outbreak of a war in the Ukraine, and we already see what oil prices are going. And as it stands right now, 90% of our power almost is still provided by fossil fuels. So we see that impact. So the one thing I can say realistically to assure to Barbadians, although reduced energy prices is obviously the ostensible goal that I'm sure government will want to achieve from a policy perspective, realistically, what we can say with some certainty is that this green energy transition would result in stable electricity prices once we use renewable technologies that do not require us to repeatedly expend money on foreign inputs to supply the generation of that electricity. So this RSP project is one such project where once the capital investment is made, it has a 25-year life cycle, and the power will be produced under a stable contract that does not allow any volatility or variations in terms of price.
Well, stable is better than paying price increases, so I guess that is better news than what is happening right now across the world with these oil prices, and we are seeing it at the pump right here in Barbados as well. We'll take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll get some final comments about what this project will do for Barbados, what else can we expect coming out of this project. So we'll hear a bit more from Thibault and Jacqueline as well, and Aidan. And we'll really talk about the future of renewable energy, because this is one project, but I remember, Aidan, one time we were talking about segmenting the power grid, where all the power is not going to, well, just from one station to the entire country, but having segments, pocket power grids to supply a number of homes in different microgrids. So we'll come back and talk a bit about what the future looks like for renewable energy here in Barbados through this project. We're talking about these renewable energy solutions that we will see come into Barbados starting later this year into next year, and the sky is really the limit as far as the renewable energy sector is concerned, and investment in the sector will go into the billions of dollars. This project that we are talking about here, being run by HDF, $270 million Barbados dollars, 135 million US, and that's just the beginning. Thibault, talk to us about your expectations as you go into really rolling out this project later this year into 2023, and once you complete it, what are your expectations? What do you see happening for Barbados in terms of probably attracting more investment for other projects going forward?
So first, this project, as Aidan mentioned, is already going to, if successfully developed, is actually going to provide 6% of the energy mix on a stable way, and not only produce this amount of power, but produce it in a very stable way and also a dispatchable way, which means that in the very future features of our project, we have the ability to ramp up power at a higher level when needed in order to compensate other instabilities on the grid. So not only we produce something stable, but we also can react to an event on the grid in order to stabilize it. So the next step after that is actually to build another project but go even further in terms of services that we can provide to the grid in order to stabilize it. And this way, we can heavily reduce the reliance of the Barbados grid on heavy fuel oil, which is actually one of the carbonated fuel that powers the entire grid of Barbados. So is to redesign a second project, maybe using like wind on top of solar, but this needs to be very carefully assessed. But we, as I mentioned before, we would actually design a project to best fit the need of the grid. Not propose a solution like this. Understand what is the need locally in order to further decarbonize. Because what you need to understand when you decarbonize a grid on an island is that the deeper you go, the more complex it becomes. Putting 5-10% of renewable energy intermittent on a grid is not a piece of cake for the utility, but it's not too complex. And the more intermittent power you put on the grid, like solar, for example, the more complex it becomes to run because your grid becomes more unstable. And if you want to go past that, if you want to decarbonize the full grid, you need to actually come up with smarter solutions, more reactive solution and stable solution as we propose. So we're not looking at the intermittent market, which is already very well developed by the Barbadians on island, but in order to propose solutions that are able to push further the decarbonization of the grid. So that would be, of course, in Barbados, potentially a second project and including new features, such as mobility, for example.
And this project is expected to create a lot of jobs as well, because you're not only talking about setting up this power grid, but you have to talk about maintenance as well. Jacqueline, what can you tell us about that? The jobs are expected to be created around this project, and how do we maintain it over its lifetime?
So the largest proportion of those jobs will come from the construction activities, and of course, those activities would be in the civil structural area mostly. Some electrical, of course. So that would, I think, be 150 jobs around there, locally sourced, and managed by a main contractor with an experienced main contractor. And then the operations phase, once we are complete with commissioning, that would be about 20, I would think. And the intent, of course, is that HGF, being the proprietary, who would hold all those proprietary operating manuals, HGF would, of course, train and ensure that the local people can maintain the plant here with minimal input from the company. Then there's, of course, the sheep farm, which in its current configuration, we think around 10 agricultural specialists working on the farm. So in total, I guess 180 to 200 jobs, and that does not include the jobs that would be created around the construction site, which of course would be like concessions, stands, etc.
Wow, well, that's definitely some good news. Aidan, I have to ask you this question. We have some other comments from Facebook that we will put up in a matter of moments before we end the program. But while people would like stability, at least in terms of the energy prices, people really want cheaper prices because the prices are already pretty high. Is there any way that, say, a company like HDF can possibly enter the market? Because we've been talking about so many partnerships, but maybe what is needed in the energy market is competition, so that we can offer homeowners cheaper prices in terms of what they're paying for electricity. What can happen there, Aidan?
Well, there's been lots of views about competition in the market, and one of the challenges that we've had, particularly not only just in the energy sector, but in the market in general, is that Barbados is a relatively small market. And if you speak to any of the economists, they would tell you that competition, to create a competitive environment, the market must be of a certain size. So that is a challenge that we have because obviously with Barbados's grid being relatively small, so you would look at places such as Hawaii, you would look at places like Germany, maybe even Jamaica in the regional context. Jamaica has a grid that's 4 times the size of Barbados, and they've raised competitive bids over there. The challenge with our market size is that to create some level of competition here, because the market is relatively small, it is not really going to stimulate necessarily a lot of the attention that you will want from some of the more competitive persons, because Barbados is really seen as a micro market. Um, but that apart, one of the things that I can say specifically to this project is as it relates to reduced costs. This RSP project has the ability to replace, in terms of service, what we can call one of the utilities' current gas turbines or peaking plant. And we are quite confident that the operation of this facility will be significantly cheaper than the operation of those gas turbines. So in the context, if you want to look at reduction, notwithstanding what Mr. Ménage would have said about really trying to get deeper down into the base load capacity that we have to ostensibly replace eventually as we move towards 100%. This project would represent the ability to offset and provide a reduction in terms of some of the existing operating assets on the grid.
Okay. We want to take a quick pause. We want to come back and get some of those final Facebook questions because we've had some feedback from Facebook that we really want to get some answers to. So a quick pause and we'll be right back as we speak about renewable energy here on the People's Business. We've had some vibrant discussion here on the People's Business tonight as we talk about Renew Stable. It's all about renewable energy and stable energy going into the grid. Thibault, Aidan, Jacqueline, I really want to thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight to talk about all that HDF Caribbean is doing here in Barbados and really across the region. And we may need another hour, another week to get into further discussion on the program. But I really want to thank you all for spending some time, especially you, Thibault, because we know you're up in the early hours of the morning there in France. But we're glad that your company has brought this level of investment and a green project to Barbados, which will be of big benefit to us here on the island. Again, thank you all for sharing with us tonight on the People's Business, and you be safe until the next time we talk. And we hope that that will be very, very soon. And again, thank you to viewers for spending time with us tonight here on the People's Business. Of course, you can watch us every Sunday. We start at 8. The program is 1 hour. You send your calls to us and we get those questions answered. I'm Shane Seeley. That's it for tonight's edition of the People's Business. Be good, sleep well, and I'll see you in the morning.